Hi, my name is Mike, and I'm here to read a comic. Today's comic is Captain America, issue number 231, dated March 1978. This was a terrific comic book. This is a multi-issue arc, so I actually don't know how long it is. I do remember reading issue number 233. I think I bought it because I liked the cover. And this is another cover. This is a very powerful cover here. See Captain America. He has his back to us. He's looking forward. He's seeing a cross being burnt. He's also seeing a costume figure giving the Nazi salute. And we see a bunch of accolades watching him, saluting back. And we're told on the cover, if America should die, ... So we get to see this is sort of a fighting fascism at home comic. And these groups were growing at the time. The artist is Keith Pollard and Al Milgrom. It's a very effective cover, in my opinion. So before we go into the comic itself, we'll take a look at the an ad here. It's for a new movie that was coming out, Invasion of the Body Snatchers. This is a remake of the classic 1956 film, Invasion of the Body Snatchers. I recommend both films. In terms of remakes, this was a really good remake. So we're going to look at the comic, and it's called Aftermath. We see that the writer is Roger McKenzie. He wrote a number of good stories, I remember. Excuse me. And the art is by Sal Buscema and Don Perlin. I would say that this kind of looks more like a Don Perlin book than a Sal Buscema. So I think Sal did probably most of the layouts, but I suspect that Don Perlin did the finished work. It's actually not telling us who the inker is. So I'm assuming one of them I'm assuming Don Perlin probably inked it. So we see Captain America with the Falcon. They're saying goodbye to each other. And they're saying goodbye to their partnership, which I think at this point was close to 10 years. These two, it was Captain America and the Falcon. The comic book was like that for, I figure, probably 8-9 years. So this was a successful partnership. Marvel was looking to spin off the Falcon as a solo character because they knew the character was popular, but they weren't quite sure whether the Falcon can hold its own comic book. Unfortunately, it really didn't. They tried some solo adventures. They weren't happy with the sales, so I don't think they ever came through with a solo comic for the character. But at this point, they have to try. It looks like the backdrop, and I don't know what happened in the previous issue, but it looks like they're kind of cleaning up an operation with S.H.I.E.L.D. So it looks like these two, in their last partnership, they were successful in what they wanted to achieve. S.H.I.E.L.D's doing kind of the cleanup work. We see that there's a relative of the Falcon, Sam Wilson. His name is Jim Wilson. I believe Jim Wilson was sort of was kind of a secondary version of Rick Jones for a while. So when they had Rick Jones kind of doing his own adventures, Marvel sort of introduced an African American character who was friends with the Hulk. And I think this is the first time they actually acknowledged that these two characters are related, Sam and Jim Wilson. So anyway, the Falcon is wishing Captain America well. They're fighting an organization called the Corporation. And Captain America is still going to go on with this fight, but he really doesn't know a whole lot about them. However, his thoughts are interrupted. As it turns out, there's a SHIELD agent yelling at a very frightened young woman here. I don't want to say young woman, but she's very frightened here. It turns out that this woman was a agent of SHIELD and that she betrayed SHIELD. So when it was found out that she is a traitor, this one particular agent was very offended by this, and he's giving her a tongue lashing, really letting her get the business. She's extremely frightened at this point. And it looks like he's about to like pistol whip her. Oh, and however, Captain America sees this. He's saying that you're not going to hit a woman, while I'm around. So he grabs the weapon from the SHIELD agent. He destroys it. The SHIELD agent is angry as fuck, and he's yelling at Captain America. He's basically saying, "Hey, listen, mind your own business. You have no authority to do anything, much less stop me from beating up on this traitor." And the SHIELD agent is so angry that he takes a swing at Captain America. And Captain America simply uses his shield to block that flying fist. So this guy, it looks like he has a broken left hand. And Captain America is giving this guy boxing advice. And I have to say, he is correct about this. He's admonishing the agent for leading with his right. So the agent here was trying to use his jab as a knockout punch. And Captain America rightly corrects him, saying that you use your jab to set up your right hand. So he's really admonishing this SHIELD agent for not knowing basic fighting skills. The other SHIELD agents, they see this, they're not happy. They don't like seeing their guy being pushed around. They turn their guns on Captain America at this point, saying that, hey, you still have no authority here. And Captain America is trying to remind the SHIELD agents, think about whose side you're really supposed to be on. And what he did was Captain America says that he's getting official transport out of this area and that he's going to take Vamp with him. Vamp is the woman that betrayed SHIELD. So all the agents are pretty quiet because they know that their superiors were the ones who contacted Captain America. So they really can't do anything about either one of them. Then it turns out that Captain America approaches Vamp. Again, she's very frightened, very scared. She does accept Captain America's help, and she looks shell-shocked about what's going on. So she's set to be the traitor, but at the same time she's acting like an individual that's really kind of mentally lost. SHIELD's transport shows up, and Captain America and Vamp board, and Captain America is hoping to get some answers. See an in-house ad for the Shogun Warriors. Never read it, never really understood these comics, to be honest. We see an ad for posters of popular celebrities at the time. Jimmy and Kevin McNichol. Yeah, they were kind of big at the time. We see the Coneheads, we see Farrah. Farrah was like kind of on the downslide at this point because she had peaked in '76, but that salary dispute she had with Charlie's Angels, it really took a lot of wind out of her career. We see a larger poster for Cheryl Ladd, who is Farrah's replacement on the show. We see a poster for Linda Carter, for Kiss, and for Susan Anton. She was one of these celebrities that Hollywood tried to make famous, but she was a beautiful woman, but it just never worked out for her. And you're offered other posters, such as the cast of Saturday Night Live, Olivia Newton-John, Sean Cassidy, Donnie and Marie, Leif Garrett. Yeah, Grizzly Adams. So anyway, going back to the story, Captain America, he's on the transport. He's thinking about the previous adventure. Apparently, he had ran into a individual called the Constrictor, and they had battled it out. I think the Constrictor ended up inadvertently destroying the headquarters that he was in, but nevertheless, they both survived because it looks like the place had completely collapsed. So then he Captain America recalls that he ends up in Los Angeles, and he meets up with a group of super agents, and I think these were agents that were kind of being trained in SHIELD. They're sort of like a precursor to the Suicide Squad. See the Texas Twister, Quasar, the Vamp, and I think someone else. And then it turned out the corporation, this is the entity from the beginning, he had to fight it out with their agent, which is Moonstone. And this is the female Moonstone, because the original Moonstone was a male, but then he didn't get a sex change operation. But a woman took over the power of the Moonstone. And that actually turned out to be a good choice. And she was sort of a precursor for Harley Quinn. And when I look at some of the other issues, I'll explain that later on. And it turns out that Captain America, not only in addition to the leader of the corporation and Moonstone, had to deal with this kind of trollish creature who kind of actually looks male, looks really kind of like a mutant. And this mutant is using kind of this club and against the Hulk, because apparently the Hulk was involved in this battle too. The Hulk is dealing with this big-headed creature. Hulk destroys the club, but it turned out that it was Vamp who was that evil troll. So when the club was destroyed, Vamp returned back into herself. So rather than being this ugly, trollish guy, she reverted back into a fairly attractive woman here. But nevertheless, her mind is kind of shattered here. Captain America doesn't know why. He's hoping they can do something. The pilots of the plane, and we'll go to the story. This ad's not really a big deal. So anyway, they're heading into New York, and it turns out that SHIELD has a hidden headquarters in Manhattan. They use various holograms to kind of hide their presence, but nevertheless, the spaceship goes through, and they're at this, I guess, SHIELD headquarters in New York. It's kind of like a regional headquarters. So they're bringing Vamp, and Captain America says, I want her to get the best health care. Because I think Captain America got the impression that she wasn't under her own mental facilities when she had betrayed SHIELD. One member of SHIELD is really angry about the way Captain America has been acting. Well, Captain America, he's thinking about Sharon, his girlfriend. And it looks like they haven't been close for a while. So anyway, this guy, he introduces himself to Captain America. He's a lieutenant of it, for internal security, and he wants answers from Captain America. Captain America is like, listen, I'm not going to answer questions from some lowly lieutenant just out of college, so fuck you, asshole. However, the lieutenant, he's not listening to Captain America. Captain America is actually being physically threatening here. He has his shield really on the lieutenant's throat here, making it clear that he can slice his neck off or his head off his neck. And Captain America just kind of leaves. He doesn't want to deal with S.H.I.E.L.D. at this point. This is a very angry Captain America. I guess you could say earlier when Steve Englehart was writing the character, and people felt that that was the quintessential Captain America. That Captain America was also angry, but that Captain America was also kind of self-reflective. Where this Captain America he's just in a bad situation, and he's just dealing with it the best he can. Captain America, he's begrudging S.H.I.E.L.D. for all this extra protection. He doesn't really understand it, and that he feels that it's making enemies where S.H.I.E.L.D. doesn't necessarily have to have any. So anyway, Captain America, he's heading back to his apartment. This is a real pain in the ass here, because it's not like he can just walk through the front door. He actually has to break into his own apartment, which, I mean, if you have to go through that, you're kind of better off just making some other arrangements in terms of living quarters. But when Captain America sees the apartment's been trashed, because it looks like the corporation had sent their minions there and they were kind of searching through it. So they left his apartment a complete wreck. Captain America, he just has, at this point, he's taken off the mask. So he's Steve Rogers at this point. Steve just has to deal with it. He's cleaning up the apartment, kind of just making do with what was undamaged. It looks like for the most part things were thrown around, but nothing was actually broken. So then Steve Rogers, he just lays down, he kind of contemplating what's going on with his life, kind of, getting some Z's. And however, he wakes up in the middle of the night because he still has problems with insomnia. So it kind of looks like sleep deprivation is kind of bothering him. And take a look at the letters page here, because rather than having it at the end, they have it in the middle. Letters to the Living Legend. They're talking about issue number 228. I think the letters were all positive. They're mentioning S.H.I.E.L.D. here, and it looks like S.H.I.E.L.D. and Captain America are kind of parting ways. And so the first letter was just talking about how general. He seems to like the direction. The second letter is they're also talking about the issue. I'm trying to figure out what he's talking about. Yeah, they're just talking about the issue itself. He seems to like it. Letter, yeah, they seem to be fine with it. Honestly, these letters, they're kind of boring. Sitting with Captain America, he's having trouble with insomnia, so he's going to start patrolling the city at the break of dawn, kind of hoping this will kind of, snap him out of it, so he can kind of like go back to sleeping normally. Captain America's still kind of stuck on where to go. So he's a guy who has lots of options, but he doesn't have lots of options. I'm going to cut some of this out. So Captain America isn't quite sure where to go. So that's it. So Captain America isn't quite sure where to go on this morning patrol. So he decides to go to someplace familiar, and that would be Sam's office. Sam Wilson. Sam Wilson is a social worker when he isn't out patrolling as the Falcon. So he's hoping that maybe he can talk to Sam, or maybe he can kind of take care of Sam's office until he returns. So Captain America is like one of these thank God it's Monday guys. Because at this point, he had, some time to himself, some time to relax, but no, he actually created a job for himself. And that he was going to guard Sam Wilson's office until Sam returned. Captain America notices that there's a large pile of newspapers piling up. You don't want that happening because that's kind of it's kind of a message saying that you can rob me and nobody will notice. So Captain America, he picks up the newspapers, and he's going to read through them. So that's sort of like how he's going to keep up to date on events. Captain America notices that there's somebody in the larger part of Sam's office, because Sam has his own office, and I guess he has a reception area. So Captain America bursts in, and he sees that it's Peggy Carter. Peggy Carter is an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. Peggy Carter was Steve Rogers' girlfriend, I guess during the 40s, or a much earlier period in his life. And he sort of had this creepy relationship in that Captain America was in suspended animation. The woman that he was involved with, which is Peggy, when he was out of suspended animation, she was still around, and she was still part of his life. But the thing is, he didn't get old, and she did. And that turned out to be a huge mistake for Peggy, because then Captain America started dating Peggy's younger sister, Sharon. So I guess it's a similar situation with the Simpsons and Mr. Burns.
Who should appear but the unrequited love of my college years, Mimsy Bancroft. Of course, by then Mimsy had her share of wrinkles and a grey hair or two, but my adoring eyes saw past those minor imperfections to her 21-year-old daughter Lily.
Where it's kind of like that creepy situation where the protagonist is kind of looking at the younger girlfriend or the younger sibling. But Peggy still carried feelings for Cap. And she was thinking that they could, reunite their romance. But Cap was like, I'm sorry, I'm not into MILFs. Excuse me. So at this point, Peggy's concerned about her sister Sharon, because her younger sister Sharon is also an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., and they're both mentioning that S.H.I.E.L.D. has been a little strange with their security. And it turns out that Peggy is relaying to Captain America what Sharon was involved in. Apparently she was trying to infiltrate a group called, I think it's called the National Front. Yeah, so it's a group called National Front. It's a white supremacist group. And they're led by a masked figure in a costume, all white. We see that he has some henchmen also in all white. He's having a hate rally in Central Park. And before I go back to the story, take a look at this in-house ad. Excuse me. It's for Power Man and Iron Fist. I think this is when they first teamed the two up. So they sort of had these two characters that were middling sellers individually, but they still had a base. So they figured that if they can combine these two, that maybe they would have one, really good selling comic. I think it did work out it did work out, because the comic it stayed together for, I think, another 3 or 4 years. Obviously, they're sort of relying heavily on black exploitation imagery, which might have been a little out of vogue at the time. Same way, we'll go back to the story. We see the leader of the National Front, and it's really kind of the same old white supremacist stuff. You know, all these foreigners coming in are making us weak, and we need to kick them out so we can return back to being strong. There are counter-protesters. They are very passionate, though, and it's a mixed group of black and white. And it's also, the age is a little mixed. So this counter protest group, they're actually a bit older than what you would normally expect, because these look like middle-aged men here. The police officers, they're not happy that this group is holding this rally, the National Front, but nevertheless, they said, listen, they legally are allowed to do it. Based on what I've seen of police unions lately, I think most of them would probably be cheering this, or they would be cheering for the National Front. Turns out there's 2 agents of SHIELD at this meeting, and they were assigned to sort of infiltrate or at least gather intelligence on this group, since SHIELD is concerned about their activities. However, the counter-protesters, they're getting more and more violent, and they're getting more and more confrontational. So the police is having a hard time holding them back. However, the leader of the National Front, he's in rant mode. He ignites the cross burning. So right now we have a full-fledged cross burning in Central Park. This makes the protesters angrier, and the leader of the National Front, he's giving his white supremacist speech, and then suddenly it appears that it's actually working, and that he's actually able to persuade these people, at least the white ones, that they should join him. So it kind of looks like everyone is hypnotized at this point. Before I get to the story, I'll take a look at bullpen bulletins. We see Stan's soapbox. Again, this is word salad. I honestly don't know what he's babbling about. And I really don't want to try to figure it out. We see some of the points they're making. They're talking about some of the licensed properties. Like they have a license to produce a Jaws 2 comic, Battlestar Galactica, Kiss 2. All 3 of those were magazines. They were part of the magazine line. So they're talking about that. They're talking about Star-Lord here, and they're still talking about the price change from 35 cents to 40 cents. They're talking about Daredevil issue 157, and so they're trying to get Daredevil back on the radar, which helped when they brought in Frank Miller. They're talking about Battlestar Galactica, the first issue. I remember buying this. I didn't really particularly care for it. But nevertheless, they have high hopes for Battlestar Galactica. And, yeah, that's about it. They're just talking about it as a Conan special. Okay, so I'll go back to the story. Oh, before I do, I'll talk about this Twinkies ad. It's the Incredible Hulk changes his mind. So the Hulk is walking through the forest. He's making an absolute menace of himself. You know, he's whining about wanting to be alone as he's being alone. But when he hits one of the trees, he shakes out someone who's in it. It turns out to be this little, 7-year-old kid. Hulk's not impressed with this kid, saying, you know, you're not old enough or big enough to bother me. The kid is saying, hey, why would I bother you? And he says that if you want people to leave you alone, you got to bribe them. and he's gonna bribe them with Hostess cupcakes. So I guess this group of bullies who were kind of chasing around this 10-year-old kid, okay. They're given these Hostess pastries, and they really like it. Hulk is impressed with the intelligence of this kid, and they kind of eat Twinkies together. Hulk is still destroying large portions of this forestry, but nevertheless, he does have his Hostess cupcakes. Okay, so Sharon, as I mentioned, Sharon Carter, agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., and another agent, they're in the crowd, but they were there as observers. But the flash of light that affected the minds of the other protesters has also affected them. So you could see it, the change of expression on their faces. They became very hateful. They talk about how they can only hate. And then suddenly there's a fight amongst the protesters where the white protesters are turning on the black protesters, and the two are having it out. And Sharon Carter's in this fight, so she's in this medley. I think it's called the National Director or the National Leader. He's the leader of the National Front. He's watching this with approval. So anyway, Captain America and Peggy, they're talking. It looks like they're on the streets of Harlem. And Captain America is asking, why didn't you make this a police matter? And Peggy says that by the time the police came, the national director was gone, and Sharon was gone, and I don't know what happened to them. So Captain America initially doesn't want to get into this fight. At this point, he had already broken up with Sharon. And Captain America wasn't quite sure whether Sharon was going to be a part of his life. So this is a big disappointment to Peggy. I mean, this guy has been a real jerk to Peggy. First, he kind of breaks off the romantic thing that they had going because of age. And then when he breaks up with the younger sister, he doesn't want to help her. I mean, she's clearly in dire need of help. She's clearly under some type of mental influence. But Captain America is like, hey, listen, I don't know if I want to be a part of this. But Captain America does agree, but he doesn't want Peggy to be endangered. So he's gonna take this fight alone. Peggy kind of leaves the situation. She goes into her car, but it turns out that there are members of the National Front waiting to ambush her. So as she's about to turn on the car ignition, she's attacked by these members, and they destroy the car she's in. And this is the cliffhanger we're left with, and we're told that the next issue is called Holocaust in Harlem. And yeah, that was a good read. So anyway, that is my review of Captain America issue number 231, and I hope to have more reviews up soon.